And were I to review the first part of Blood Ties, this hangout hasn't really been sponsored, but it could be sponsored by this book, Disaster Survival Skills. And as you can see, it's an STJ book. There you go, STJ Books have brought this book out. Perfect for STJs. What do you reckon, Jeff? Do you reckon they like a book like that?
All right.
Right, here we go. So, right. Over to you, Jeff.
Ben finds that much more amusing than I do. But anyway, okay, we're doing Blood Ties Part 1, the first episode of Season 6 of Homicide, Life on the Street. It originally aired October 17th, 1997, and was written by Anya Epstein, Tom Fontana, and Julie Martin. And we will go to what Mr. David B226 Morris has to say about this episode. Read that, and then we'll get Ben's initial thoughts. Go from there.
Right.
So, Blood Ties Part 1 begins with Pemberton and Bayless returning to the homicide unit, fresh from a 3-month rotation in robbery. They are certain that G will be, will be glad to see them, and the unit will be in a shambles after their departure. Turns out, however, that the experiment of rotating detectives between departments has been a spectacular success so far. The revamped unit has the highest clearance rate in years. This is really hard to believe, especially since the clearance rate was so high last year, but it is symbolic of the big change that has overtaken the squad. The new breed consists of former Auto Squad Detective Falzone, former IID Detective Gardy, and Laura Ballard, fresh from the Seattle Homicide Unit. Giardello and Munch, the only detective to remain in the unit the whole time, don't seem to have missed the old detectives that much. But then they don't have much time, as this episode is particularly top-heavy. All sorts of changes have occurred in the meantime. Kellerman is coming back from Auto, Lewis is coming back from Vice, and Howard is still in the Fugitive Squad. Brody has gone to Hollywood, in a very tongue-in-cheek reference to the documentary that he shot last year, aired on PBS, and he won an Emmy. Kellerman and Juliana Cox have broken up. Mary Pemberton has yet to give birth, and issues like Frank's stroke and Tim's child abuse are no longer mentioned, though they are gone but not forgotten. All of this is dealt with rapidly while two major storylines come into focus. The first involves Pemberton and Bayless's first case back, a murder at the Belvedere Hotel. A black woman is found in the men's room, strangled, while a black tie event honoring snack cakes manufacturer Fabulous Felix Wilson's charity work in the black community is going on. Giardello is an old friend of Felix's wife, which is critical when we learn the victim is Malia Briere, a Haitian expatriate who was the Wilsons' domestic helper. Because of the size of the case, Ballard and Gardy are called in as backup and therefore have the pleasure of clashing with Pemberton. Though he tries to remain dispassionate, it's clear Frank admires Felix Wilson, and he seems very reluctant to consider that Wilson or someone in his family might have slept with Briere, much less killed her. When Bayless tries even to hint at this possibility at the hotel, he brusquely brushes Tim off. He is far colder with Ballard when she makes the suggestion. Then again, he may just be pissed that she's taken over his desk. My far more important storyline is unfolding in the background. A man on a motorcycle using a .50 caliber gun starts taking shots at Baltimore plainclothes detectives, very specific detectives, Lewis, Kellerman, and Stivers, who has now been rotated to robbery. Falzone, who has just begun to partner with Lewis, puts it together. They're being targeted by someone in the Luther Mahoney organization. The investigation eventually leads to Junior Bunk, whom we met in last season's Control. Apparently he's upgraded from dealer to sniper, though when the detectives find him, he is still as quick to bolt, cry, and snitch in that order. This time he's facing far worse charges. While shooting at Stivers, he hit a witness she was interviewing, killing her. But it doesn't take much for him to give up who ordered it, his mother and Luther's sister, Georgia Ray. This is a subplot that will plague the squad, particularly Lewis and Kellerman. Okay, and that part's a bit of a spoiler there. Falzone takes it upon himself to reopen the file on Luther's shooting and finds the three versions of the story too close to each other. He knows that something is up with Luther's shooting and is going after Kellerman very aggressively. There are also signs that this is troubling some of them. Meldrick asks to partner with someone other than Mike, most likely because he doesn't want to bear the guilt he's feeling. This is all very strong stuff. The problem is it's severely diluted by a lot of flashy action. We have bullets flying into cars and from rooftops, a race between police helicopters and a private jet, and the arrival of an evil sister who greets Kellerman by kneeing him in the groin and ominously tells the detectives this isn't over. Also, in trying to introduce us to detectives Ballard and Falzone and focusing on the tension between Kellerman and Lewis, as well as Pemberton and Ballard, regulars Kyle Secor and Richard Belzer are given very little to do. Many of the problems of Season 6 involve balancing the old detectives with the new cast members, something that the writers would improve at but never quite master. It's a pity because there's a lot of good talent on display. The great James Earl Jones makes a marvelous first impression as Felix Wilson. We get a good sense of Wilson as a philanthropist and human being, yet not quite right as a husband or a father. Joining Jones is Jeffrey Wright, best known for his performance on stage and TV in Angels in America as Hal Wilson, and the late Lynn Thigpen as Regina Wilson. Equally impressive is comedian Hazel Goodman as Georgia Ray, who will prove she has as much style as Eric Todd Dellums did, and Mekhi Phifer continues to entertain as Junior Bunk. There's little that's wrong with Blood Ties Part 1. It has a lot of fine acting, dark humor, and superb camera work that Homicide usually does. Perhaps the biggest problem is that it is obviously part of a greater whole. When Georgia Ray tells us in the last scene, this isn't over, in more ways than one, this is true. There's good stuff, but you want next week to come sooner. My score, 8.2. So that's what he says. Ben, what about you?
If it wasn't, there's a little bit of a plot hole, and that is like if it wasn't for the plot hole, I would give it an 8.
You gotta make less noises and speak more words, Ben.
Yeah.
Not getting across anything yet.
Because what it is that Junior Bunk is not exactly got a track record of being, competent. So he's not competent, and she decides to. So I'm thinking about her thought process of, yes, let's have my incompetent son try to kill off these police officers.
Well, actually, he said, though, when he was being interviewed, and you assume he's telling the truth, that she actually didn't send him to kill them. He was just supposed to shoot at them and send a message. So he may have been the perfect one to do that because she figured he's not going to want to kill them anyway. So I don't have to worry about he's actually going to murder anyone. He's just going to shoot at them. Yeah, so...
Yeah, so all of that doesn't
I wouldn't exactly say that he was shown to be incompetent before. He was just shown to be a little bit of a wimp, at least when he's caught. But he did, according to what they showed him last season, he was still quite a bit involved in Mahoney's organization in terms of coordinating things. So he's apparently a smart dude. He's just not exactly a tough guy, at least hadn't been up to this point.
Well, it's an incompetent gangster.
Well, yeah, like I said, if two things I would say. Number one is, yes, if the idea really was to just take him out, that she would have gone with an actual hitman that was better than him. But two, of course, on television we have plenty of times where professional hitmen are lousy anyway because plot reasons.
It's not just that though. So that's one reason, but so he is her son. And it's like, hey, do this thing that's illegal that could get you put in prison. So
that's how she knew he would do it, because he's loyal.
Right. Okay. So as long as it establishes that she's maybe not. Now, the reason I've stayed on this picture is that I have a theory about her character type.
Okay.
First of all, you got Kellerman comes up cocky, does his ESTP thing. Hey, I'm the guy that killed Mahoney, and then she kicks him in the bollocks, and then goes, guess what? I'm an ASTP too. I could be fairly sure that she's an ESTP. What say you, Jeff?
Yeah, and that almost convinces me more that Luther was not, because
Yeah,
she's better at the things ESTPs are usually better at than Luther was, but she's also has the same weaknesses in that she doesn't think ahead very well, maybe. So, and according to what Junior Bunk said, she was the one in charge of the money, at least to some extent. Whereas maybe they should have had Mr. Clean be in charge. But anyway, that's a separate.
yes, that would be fantastic. If they could bring him back, Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
STJ
anyway,
villain.
That to me was the only real weakness in this episode. Was the ending when she's in the jail cell was a little bit too Hollywood. We're going to have her talk to the camera about how this is. All she was missing was like a cat to be petting while she was, threatening revenge on Kellerman.
In fact, that aspect to me was that aspect with the mother and Junior Bunk. To me, that bit was 1980s quality drama rather than 1990s quality drama, where it was a little bit larger than life, a little bit Miami Vice, Magnum PI kind of stuff.
Well, even in the 90s, you still had, the networks being like, we need more action because we can sell action.
But I did like the action.
Yeah, one thing, Morris didn't really mention it, even though he did mention it because he said bullets flying into cars. But the ultimate thing of this episode is you don't have too many times. Like, you have times on Homicide where there's like surprises, but you don't have a lot of like sudden action sequences like that where it's like kind of lulls you into thinking it's just this conversation between Lewis and Falzone, and then all of a sudden they're shot at. It's a pretty big impact in that moment. In fact, I think it probably would have been even more so if they hadn't shown Junior Bunk on his motorcycle before that. I think, honestly, if I was writing it, I would have had him not even show that ahead of time and just have that be the first indication that somebody was going after him. Because I know the idea is you're supposed to be wondering, who is this mystery person on the motorcycle? But honestly, again, that sort of just seems like more Hollywood and not realistic. That. But I don't know. Maybe that's trying to indicate that because he's not usually a gunman, he's not really sure how to do it exactly. So he first was going to do it in front of the police building, and maybe he reconsiders and says, hey, well, maybe this is not a good place for me to do it. Too many cops around. They're going to nab me faster, so I better wait until they're somewhere else. So they don't have any of that thought process, verbal, so you don't know that's what's occurring, but it may be that's what they were trying to establish.
Yeah, it was like that aspect of the storyline was like TV stuff. It was fun, it was interesting, but it was like I recently saw some Dallas where and you love soaps, where it has that sort of like heightened, where it's a bit more fun, where it's a bit more heightened and over the top aspect to it. And you did say that like they constantly wanted to get more action into it, where a little bit less real, a little bit more over the top, a little bit more fun, a little bit more like particular series that were around in the 1980s.
Yeah, and I understand from a TV perspective why they want to have the first episode really grab people's attention. And that's why I was saying off the air before we got into this that I think when you have a 3-part story, I'm totally spoiling it for the audience, it's a 3-part story, but anyway. But then I think the second part is actually the easiest to write and usually ends up being the best for that reason. because you have certain tasks that are before you as a writer and producer and director when it comes to making a show, in telling a 3-part story like that. And the first part, you have to grab the audience's attention. You have to tell in this case, the backstory of what's occurred in the last few months, introduce new characters, reestablish old characters, remind the audience of the ongoing conflicts and stuff that happened in the previous season, as well as introducing new conflicts. You have to throw a lot of stuff at them all at once. So you can have it as an attention grabber, but when you actually look at the plot as a whole, you realize not a whole lot of stuff really happened in this first one. It's mostly sort of, it's kind of bang bang, but not a whole lot actual stuff. And in the third part, you have to find a way to wrap things up. And of course, in a continuing TV show, not everything is going to be wrapped up neatly, but certain things have to be. The things that are introduced just for this story,
right,
have to be wrapped up. So you have to find a conclusion point. But in the second part, you don't have to do either of those things. You've already got all the things established, and you don't have to finish it yet. So you can take what you've got, and you can run with it and have fun with it and end everything on cliffhangers because you don't have to finish it until the third one.
Right, well, okay. Yep.
So that's why I would say that I think this episode works great for what it is, but the next episode is overall a better episode because it's more like what is good about Homicide,
right,
as opposed to a typical TV show. This one has the characters and it has elements of Homicide in it, but it is very like we're trying to grab people's attention and say, hey, we can be exciting too on Homicide, and I know they had to do that sometimes, and this was one of those cases. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Right. I think that I can see where you're coming from, because for you, when you've written stuff or wanted to write stuff, for you the plot is the hardest thing, and so generally, and I can see how from your point of view, and yes, I mean, if you know where you're going to and you've got a good ending and you know how to start, and the first episode is about how to get all this exposition across in a natural way that does not sound like exposition, where it sounds like natural talk, where people aren't just saying stuff for the sake of the audience's understanding. And with your particular skill sets, where that means that you can then get into the nuances of the story and have the character things and the issues that come up, I can see how for you the middle episode would be the best one for you. But for a lot of writers, say for writers that are more into the looking at things mechanically, a lot of problems they have with the longer stories is like they have the ending worked out and they have the beginning worked out, and they don't really know what to do in the middle, because it's like they're sort of like treading water, because
but the middle is so much easier than the ending, because an ending you have to come up with an ending.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sort of saying afterwards.
I disagree with you, because I've seen so many instances of where the ending is lousy. I mean, think about how many Doctor Who stories start out fantastically but then end badly. There's a bunch of them. And so to me, you make a case for the beginning being easier to write than the middle, although I don't necessarily agree with that.
Oh, no, I didn't say that.
I don't. But I know I'm saying that I think you could more easily make a case for the beginning being easier to write than the ending. The ending is usually the hardest part.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So I agree with you. And I agree with you that the ending is the hardest, then the beginning, and then in the middle is the easiest. I'm just sort of like giving a defense as to why certain kinds of writers, usually those writers that are heavy on plot, find the middle a problem. Because they're such plot-based writers, they're not characterization-based writers, and they wonder what to do with the time. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think anybody wondering that shouldn't be writing anything. because that's the meat of your story. That's the part where you're really doing stuff, as opposed to doing about.
Well, I mean, it's like we're slightly digressing, folks, but we'll just talk about this. Is that what used to happen in Doctor Who is they would complain about episode 3 having a lot of like, and sometimes there would be like padded sequences where there would be lots of set pieces that didn't have anything to do with the plot, sort of digressions where we were just running up and down corridors.
You're talking about like in a 4-part story?
Yeah.
Usually I think in most of those, either part 1 or part 3 were usually the best parts of the episode in a 4-part story, because for the reason I just said, because you didn't have to finish it. You could have a lot of suspense without having to finish it. You could still end on a cliffhanger. So often those 3rd-part cliffhangers are some of the best ones, along with the first part.
Okay. So I can see. So yeah, basically we're not really disagreeing. We're just looking at things with different. In fact, I'm not. I don't feel I'm disagreeing at all. Right. It's just it's different skill sets, and yeah. So I half agree with you, and I half agree with myself. Right.
You half agree with yourself. Well, that's a lot of confidence you have in yourself there.
Yeah. Well, I'll cop to that. So this actress is right for this part, and to me, she. Like I said, more ESTP than Mahoney.
Yeah.
And hopefully she stays around.
See, I didn't have that feeling when first seeing her. I don't mind, but I think, like I said, the only problem I had with her in this episode was not her acting or anything. It was the ending it on her having like the little soliloquy, as Morgan called it.
I like a soliloquy. I love soliloquies.
Well, I don't. It just makes it seem more over the top, like you said earlier. It's just kind of
more soliloquies, the better.
No, that's not what this show is. Thankfully.
If I were the head of the show, I would lots of little soliloquies.
No.
You know what's going on inside people's minds.
No soliloquies. No voiceovers of.
Hey, you'd like it if it was your favorite, if it was Pembleton and your favorite characters and they were well written, you'd like it.
Well, even Pembleton, I don't want to. I mean, they have as close to that as you can have and still be realistic, which is they have conversations. A lot of they have two-person conversations a lot of the time. Pembleton and Bayless in the car, Lewis and Kellerman, whatever partner team is talking. You get a lot of good stuff where there's plenty of time that they're saying stuff where. For all intents and purposes, it is sort of a monologue, because even though they're talking to somebody, they're talking more to the camera than they are to the other person.
What, like us now?
What?
You can argue that sometimes, like what we do sometimes, because we are both aware there's an audience.
Well, right, because that's the purpose of this. I mean, if we were just going to talk about it between ourselves, then obviously we wouldn't have to record it. I mean, we could just for the sake of listening to it again later, but it wouldn't be exactly the same.
No.
But we're both pretty close to the way we talk about it on here is pretty close to how we would whether or not we.
Oh yeah.
We're not like pretending to be different people for this or anything.
Oh no.
But yeah, I mean that's the closest that I want to see to a monologue is when you have those things. I don't mind someone talking to themselves if it's done in a realistic way, the way people really do talk to themselves, not like they're posing on stage and having their little thing like they're doing some sort of Shakespeare play or something. That's I don't want to see that.
Oh, to me it all comes down to just how well written and insightful the soliloquy is. It has to, if you're going to do it, it has to be very good. Then I like it.
Well, I think that's true of anything. If you're going to do it.
But as you said, if you can get the same information out through a conversation, then do it with the conversation.
Yeah.
And also, when you have very good actors and actresses, there's a lot of stuff that you can convey through acting that you don't need a soliloquy for. So things that you can show in terms of the actors and actresses will know like the stuff that's going on in their heads will come out through their acting, and there isn't the need to actually articulate it in words. What else to say about this episode? I can go through some of these a bit slower. So got
I mean, there's plenty of things we could talk about.
I just think from this baggy 1990s clothing.
It doesn't really look that baggy to me. So.
Wow. 1990s was pretty baggy.
I mean, maybe lost a little weight.
Yeah, that's what I initially thought. I mean, from other angles, it didn't look as baggy. We got here. Yeah, big ass gun. And I thought, oh, is that a Desert Eagle?
Yes, it is.
And then we got maybe the idea that Giardello is sweet on her.
And that he's 2 feet taller than her.
Yeah,
not quite, but pretty close.
He's definitely a whole head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some police departments where she wouldn't actually even qualify because they have height requirements she wouldn't meet.
Hey, it used to be in England, you had to be 6 foot to be a police officer.
Yeah. And Callie Thorne, ladies and gentlemen, I'll save you the trouble of looking it up, is 5'2".
Oh, that is on the petite side.
Yeah. That's why she later in the episode says to Dr. Cox, "You've got height on your side," because she's a little bit taller than that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, really not thinking things through. Like, maybe should not heard of ballistics. Like giving him a gun that can be traced with 50 calibers, which I believe is, I think 50 caliber means half an inch.
She may not have even given him any specific instructions. It might have just been go scare them somehow. So you don't know because he never really says that for sure.
Maybe she thinks her son's competent. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what goes on in the heads of ESTP fictional characters. Right.
Trust me, the real ones aren't easier to figure out.
Yeah.
Especially smart ones.
Yeah, even worse because it's like
stupid ones. Maybe you can figure out basically.
Yeah, in fact, it's probably easier. But the smart ones, it's like, hang on a minute, you're supposed to be smart, but you're also impulsive. So it's like you forgot to switch your brain on.
Especially teenagers, because then it's like all the hormones are coming in too, and they just they've got too much going on in their head and their body.
Yeah. And it's like they have a brain, but they decide not to use it.
Yeah, so Peter Garrity as Stu Gardy, he didn't have a lot to do in this one, but there'll be stay tuned for a good confrontation between him and Pendleton in part 2. That's one of my.
I think he's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, I agree.
We got
John Seda, who is also a good actor. Like I said in our review of the end of season 5, he's not popular in the fandom of Homicide, but not because of his acting ability, just because of the way they made the character.
Oh, towards the end, did they make a reference to him being Hispanic?
Actually, he's supposed to be Italian, at least.
Right.
Mostly.
Oh, right.
So he may be mixed somewhat.
And then we've got Callie Thorne. Oh, I noticed something with the. Obviously, they must have. Not only have there been changes in the cast, there have been changes in the person who writes the names. It seems because it seems to be a different person.
Yeah, it could be.
I will. We won't go to the. Well, I'll go here. I'll go here and I'll show you. Here, it's a different. That's different from everybody else has been a different person that's done it. I think it's it's a different, because we were saying that the cast members are not as neat as the person that was used to fill the board in before for them. And I think this is a different person. All of this is it has a different handwriting style from all previous episodes we've done.
Okay.
Right. So.
And of course, you notice, well, maybe you didn't notice, but Felton is still under his name in red.
Oh, well.
They have not caught Felton's killer.
The Pendleton. No, what is that? Oh, right. Right. So we've got James Earl. I'll put James Earl on there. It's just that I do believe that, what else have we got here? Yeah, I liked all the stuff when snooping around of how Mahoney was rubbed out. That was quite interesting. Right. Right. I don't know what else. So, so what I will. So if people can get that, if they think of that handwriting style, and then I'll show a previous episode one, and we can sort of end on that. So that's that handwriting style, and what I'll do is I'll quickly go to a previous episode. In fact, the previous episode I can go to. There's no doubt I'll have something on the board. In fact, no, I haven't got anything on the board there. I'm going to have a look at this one. Just thrilling. The final one. This will be the finest because I don't want to keep people hanging around too much for this. I just believe it's a different writing style. But I will go to this one, and then okay, here we go. So that's the one from previous episodes, and then that's the.
It looks pretty similar to me. I think maybe it's just a little bit neater in the new one. Maybe they had more time to go over it. Or it could have been a different person. I don't know, but it's tougher to tell when it's all caps.
Hmm.
But they look pretty similar to me.
Or maybe the pen changed, something like that. Because that.
Yeah, well, the new one that has the ink is darker, so that could be part of it.
Right. So I don't know anything else to say about that episode, folks. So
Well,
anything else, Jeff, about this episode?
You have anything to say about the the plot with well, you didn't really say much of any of the plot, but the story with Briere and the family and that stuff.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Yes. It was nice to hear James Earl Jones's voice. I do like these stories that get into the issues of African American politics and things, and the ideas of like leaders in the community. I do like those kind of issues, and it touches on with issues with Frank as well, when because David B226 Morris, is that his name?
You got it! You got it! I can't believe it! On the first try, you finally remembered his name.
Repetition is the key.
Yeah, I'll have some sort of bell to ring or something. Wait, I can. Hold on a second. I got to go to the door, but hopefully you can still hear it.
Right. Yes, that was it.
There's your bell.
And in fact, I can say it again. David B. 226 Bowie. Oh, I got it wrong. David B. 226 Bowie. Right. Right.
Wherever he is, who knows where he is and what he's doing, but he's immortalized on these homicide reviews.
Something else. So I like that aspect. Maybe it's setting something up. I mean, where there's sort of set up two options where it's the bad boyfriend of the maid from Haiti, or whether it is actually James Earl Jones. Now that would lead to, if it were actually his character, that would lead to maybe some meatier scenes in subsequent episodes of this trilogy. So, or maybe if they think it's he, and then so there could be some good. So there could be some really good scenes with James Earl Jones in the box. So it could be good. There's promise in that area for some good scenes in the box with Pemberton and James Earl Jones.
Without spoiling too much, I will say that you're not too far off.
There's also I did like the stuff of Falzoni trying to find out with. Although there was a bit from Kellerman where he did something a bit too rash, where he said to Falzoni, what is it, get out of my way or knock you down, or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he doesn't know that Falzoni might be a badass or not.
Well, apparently he's willing to take that chance.
That's the thing, is the ST. I mean, I know Kellerman does boxing, but well, he might. But anyway, like I said, we have to remember that ESTPs don't necessarily think ahead.
I mean, he's shown that he's not going to back down from anybody. I mean, you had the episode, in previous seasons where he's gotten right up the face of Luther Mahoney and Drac and guys like that that have. They're not themselves badasses, then they have people that work for them that are. So Kellerman has shown that he's not really afraid of anybody when it comes to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was indicative of his type or his temperament to be, because I'm thinking that with Falzoni, you'll put him in a position where he's like, okay, I'm not going to back down either. He could easily be one of those types of people where I'm not going to have anybody say that to me.
Well, yeah, he kind of is, which is why they obviously clash quite a bit, and that won't be their last confrontation.
Now, one of the impressions I got is, do you think Falzoni is an ESFP?
No. At least not, Again, it's tough because I have the advantage of obviously I've seen his episodes.
Right.
More. They have him characterized basically. You felt a lot of the stuff they have him do is what Felton would do. He's a more inexperienced Felton. Is pretty much how they play.
Right.
So I think ISTP, but But there's a fine line, as they say. But even in and Morgan could explain this better than I could because he's an ESTP.
Yeah.
But even in the area of the type of thinking that he displays, it comes off to me as being more introverted thinking than extroverted thinking.
Right.
In the way that he flaunts it or uses it, which is another reason why he. Sort of plays well with Lewis because, again, that's a contrast a bit with him. So they have different ways of thinking, so they complement each other a little bit, the same way that Kellerman and Lewis did.
Mm. Yeah, Kellerman is an interesting kettle of fish. I think so far, do you think they've done quite a good job of writing Kellerman as an ESTP? Is it just later on that that you feel that they let him down?
Yes, you know, and I honestly think, you know, he was all along. You know, it's just he makes certain choices that Morgan doesn't like. Because you know, like the writers did to him or whatever, but I'm like, it's not unrealistic for an ESTP to go down the path to make the choices Kellerman does. I don't think it's that far out of the realm of possibility. So to me, that's the main question: is do I buy this happening with the character? And the answer is yes. There was never a point where I'm like, yeah, he wouldn't do that. There's moments where it's frustrating. When he's at the pool hall with Cox in the last season episode, you know, where he's basically getting really possessive of her, like he doesn't want her to be playing pool with this other dude. You know, that's something that is it can be irritating to see someone do that, but at the same point, it's not unrealistic that he would do that.
Yeah, that's a natural thing across temperaments. That sort of natural urge. It depends how much it's acted on, I suppose.
Yeah, jealousy is a universal thing. It's just, you know, yeah, some types are going to react to it differently for the most part. I mean, you're not going to have too many INFPs that are going to get up in somebody's face, but some could. If they're agitated enough.
Yes, that's the thing. If they're agitated enough, if they've had a bad day, if there's like other circumstances.
Even if they do just leave and go cry by themselves, they're still, the feeling's still coming from the same place. They're just dealing with it differently.
Right. So I did like that aspect of them, like Falzone chasing up on the what happened with the death of Mahoney. Like what it. Oh dear.
And we didn't really in this first episode get enough of Ballard to make much of a guess on her type at this point.
She's okay.
Would you agree on that?
Well, there's certain types we can eliminate, maybe.
Okay, so what?
Maybe ENFP, maybe ENTP, maybe INTJ. certain.
Why do you say that?
Well, the energy level. I'm looking at the way it's performed as well of those types.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily just the word, more the performance than how someone comes across.
Anything specific you can point to, though, or is it just sort of?
No, it's not. That's the thing. It's a feeling. It's like, oh, it doesn't. There's certain types this does not match.
So, did any of those feelings give you like, you know, a type that it did seem like she was performing as, or not? It was just certain things that you could eliminate.
Well, what's interesting is, like, in one of those scenes, she actually asks somebody's advice about Pembleton.
Yeah, she talked to Cox about him briefly.
Yeah, and I was thinking, now, if she was an ESTP, I don't think she would ask that. So I don't think she's an ESTP. Because she would naturally be confrontational with, and she would, like, take that as a challenge. And so I think, based on that, I would rule out ESTP for her. but like I said, it's not enough data.
Yeah. Well, obviously there will be future episodes where she'll be featured more, so you'll get more of an insight into her character, as well as Guardy as well. I have a much more confident belief on his type than I do on hers, even after seeing all of their episodes. He, to me, comes across more obviously. And I don't know whether you want me to tell you that now or wait, since you haven't really seen much of him.
Yeah, I'll wait until I see the obviousness.
That's good, because then you can get an idea of, whether you get the same take I do. But I will say this, is that the type that I'm pretty sure he is one that we've had another prominent character, at least, with the same type, so I think it makes a nice contrast in showing two different people of the same type and how they're alike and how they're different. I'll just put it that way.
Right, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right, so I'll be comparing him to Bolander then.
Well, you're free to do that if you want to.
Right. And anyway, comparing to lots of people. So I don't know. Is there anything else to say in this story?
Well, I guess like I said, more stuff happens in the next one, even though it's not as action packed. There's more stuff for us to chew on as analyzers, or if you want, whatever you want to call them. So, what score out of 10 would you give Blood Ties Part 1?
I think I'll give it 8 because there's lots of interesting things and possibilities. Well, for a start, you've got James Earl Jones in it, in his voice. I like the fact it's a little bit over the top, but the stuff with Junior Bunk's mum kneeing Callum in the groin, being out ESTP, that amused me. And then the things with the Falzoni investigating what happened with the Mahoney shooting. That was good. So I'll give it about an 8. Yeah. And there was nothing in it that I found too dark, because there was nothing in it that made me depressed about life by making me think, oh, it reminds me of how dark human nature can be in terms of like...
Yeah, I can already think of a few episodes later in the season that you might think is too dark. Especially one of them. But anyway, well, that's still to come. And I don't know, are you, because we haven't really talked about it much, so, you don't say it that way. Are you much of an animal lover? Did you have pets growing up?
Nope.
Okay.
I had one goldfish and it died.
Yeah, there's one episode later in the season that if you're one of those people that like, animals are like right there with people to you, it's a very uncomfortable episode. I'll just put it that way. But anyway, I will also give this one an 8. And I almost give it a 9, but like I said, that ending with the Georgia Ray soliloquy just knocks it slightly down to me. I can't. It's a little too Hollywood Bond villain kind of.
But to me, it was like she was telling it to somebody out there. She was like asking somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't like it. I think they went just a little too far with it. So, if I was teetering right there on the edge of 8 and 9, then that's what convinced me it was an 8 instead of a 9. But that's still a really good episode. There definitely was attention grabbing, and there's enough going on and different threads from both continuing from last season and introducing new ones that it makes, like Morris said, it makes you want to see the next one. So
yeah,
and we will, and it's a really good one. So stay tuned next time for Blood Ties Part 2.
And I'll stop the review here. Good night, folks.
Good night.
And remember, STJ Books.
Yeah.